because I've seen it. But you really do have to keep your focus, no matter how well you're doing, whether it's your company, whether it's ACN, whether it's Success Magazine. If you don't keep your focus, lots of bad things can happen. So always stay focused.
One of the things I love about your story is, people really can't criticize you because they can say, oh, well, he started out with an advantage. Look, you were successful, and then you lost it all, as many people do, and you never hear from them again. And then you got it all back, all by your lonesome, and then some, and then some, and then some. And today, you're more prolific today than you've ever been. So talk about this idea that success, failure, in those moments of failure where you could have really questioned, do I have it? Was this just an illusion that everything I touch turns to gold? What were some of the self-conversations you had to say, we got to get back up and get back after this?
Well, it wasn't an illusion because, going right up to that point, right through the 80s, it was a tremendous success.
Yeah.
But when the market changed, And I don't necessarily blame myself, but I wasn't able to take advantage of when the market changed. But I'll give you one story. I owed billions and billions of dollars. Like, I don't even want to talk about it. I owed so much money. And I didn't care. But I owed the banks tremendous amounts of money. And when 1990 came, the market changed. It just collapsed. And I'll never forget, I owed so much, I was telling the banks, forget it, I didn't want to take their phone call, the banker would call up, don't talk to them, tell them I'm out of here, I don't want to talk to them. So now it's around 1991, and they have a huge banker's dinner at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. And my secretary comes to see me, and she says, Mr. Trump, tonight you have a banker's dinner. I said, you have to be kidding. I owe $9.2 billion to the banks. And I've got to go have dinner with these guys? So I said, I'm not going. There's no way. I like to, whether you're Trump or whether you're anybody else, you want a little time, please. Let me watch a baseball game. Let me watch a football game. Let me watch Spain play soccer. What happened to your team, folks? It just shows lots of crazy things. Who would have thought that was going to happen? But I still love Spain, and don't forget, they've been winners for a long time, so don't worry about it. And I'll tell you the other thing. I'll tell you, and they have been winners for a long time, and you've had a great team. You've had a great soccer or football team for a long time. But my favorite player, Rafael Nadal. I love Rafael. You talk about, by the way, you talk about a guy who wants to win, who won't allow himself to lose. I mean, to me, I just think he's a great, great champion. So I go to this dinner. I tell my secretary, I'm not going. Then on top of it, I said, well, how long would it take? I don't know, Mr. Trump, but it's black tie. That means you have to put on a tuxedo. So I said, I'm not going. So I get home, and I feel guilty. I turn on the television, I'm relaxing, but I feel guilty. Because I say, here they have 2,500 bankers, most of whom hate me. And I'm sitting home watching, I have to do it. So I say, you know what, I'm going. I put on my tuxedo, I go to the Waldorf, and I'm sitting at a table. And at the table, I have a man on my left, a banker, who's very nice to me. And I have a man on my right who's brutal. He's terrible. And I'm talking to the guy on my left, and he actually said to me, the guy on your right doesn't like you very much. And I said to myself, you're right. Boy, he was nasty. I was talking to him, he wouldn't even talk to me. And I said, I don't know who he is, but I must owe him a lot of money. And it turned out that was true. And he was the meanest banker in New York. He had a reputation for destroying people. He would throw people into bankruptcy at the flip of a hat. And I talked to him. And I said, I owed him $92 million. I had no intention of paying him back because the world was collapsing. And the guy didn't like me, maybe rightfully so. So by the end of the evening, I'm talking, and I warm him up a little bit, and all of a sudden, he's starting to like me. It's hard to believe. And he was the roughest guy. But he's starting to like me. And the banker on my left said, you know what, Mr. Trump? He's starting to like you. So what happens is, by the end of the evening, he really did like me. And he said, Donald, if you could meet me on Monday, maybe we could work out your situation. I said, that would be great. I said, I'll go to your office. You know, when you owe the money, you go to their offices, right? So I said, I'll go to your office. And I did. And on Monday morning, I showed up at this big bank. I met with him. And in 10 minutes, I worked out this massive deal that worked out to be incredible. I might not be sitting here if I didn't do that. So here's the purpose of the story is this. You've got to work. You've got to work hard. You can't give up. Now, had I said to myself, I'm not going to go to, I want to relax, I want to take it easy, no way in a million years would I have worked out that situation. If I didn't work out that situation, very bad dominoes were going to fall. So by saying to myself, I don't want to go, I'm not in the mood to go, but I should go. And by luck, I sat next to a guy who was very important, to me at least, and very important. A lot of good things happen. So it shows you work, and you got to work, and even if you don't like it sometimes, you got to get out there and work.
So when you we've done this a few times. The last time you told this story, you ended it with something that I have since retaught many times using your quote marks. Okay. That the issue is when you're trying to decide what to do, whatever you don't want to do is probably what you should do. And so a lot of people are in this quandary. Do I go to the meeting, right? Do I get on this conference call? Do I come to Barcelona to be part of this international training event? You know, usually in life, the things that we don't want to do are exactly the things that we should do. And that's exactly as you presented it last time, which I think is very, very profound. So, all these accomplishments, and again, like I said, you're more successful today. You got more projects going on today than any time in your life. What is still on your bucket list? Is there a property or a deal or an industry that you? What else is still in that bucket? Right out loud.
I'm starting one on Monday, believe it or not, on Pennsylvania Avenue, right next to the White House. In fact, right between the White House and Congress. The best location in Washington, D.C. And it's called the Old Post Office. It was built in 1890. It's an incredible building. And it's a little bit about not giving up. I really wanted it. But it's the Obama administration, and I wouldn't say that Obama loves me. I haven't been a huge fan. And I wouldn't say that he's in love with me. So I said, you know what, even though we have a great project, there were 90 bidders, and 10 people were brought to the end. It was an RFP that's called Request for Proposal. And we ended up getting it, and we start that in a little while. So it tells you can do things. The group at GSA, which is Government Services, they really liked what we wanted to do better than all of these other great companies. And we're going to build a super luxury hotel. It could be one of the great hotels of the world, and it's going to be very exciting. But there's a case where, in theory, I shouldn't have applied, because in theory, I had no chance of getting it, and we ended up getting it. And one of the reasons we got it was vision, and the other reason is we had the best financial statement. We have a great financial statement, so they wanted to make sure it happened. They wanted to make sure it gets done. So, you know, never quitting and never giving up. There's probably a good example. One other thing, as per your last question, the harder I work, the luckier I get. So if you go back to the banking analysis, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Because I do believe in luck. But if I didn't go to that dinner, I wouldn't have had a chance to be lucky. So the harder you work, and I just think it's a great expression. I heard it many years ago by an athlete named Gary Player, a great golfer. And he was small, but he worked harder than anybody else. And he became one of probably the top 5 golfers of all time. And yet he was a very small individual, but he was very strong. He made himself strong. And he said to somebody after he had just won the U.S. Open and then the Masters, he said, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And it was a great expression. I never forgot it. And it's true in business, and it's true in life.
Okay. Well, everybody remembers that. Excellent. So you mentioned how important your family is, and you're a grandfather again. You have 6 grandchildren. You have a fantastic family. I mean, all your children are doing so well. Obviously, you've got a beautiful bride, and you're happily married, and she's the strong woman behind the great man.
She is.
So what is it that you teach your children about about success, about money, about getting in business for themselves that you could pass along to the other parents who want to raise barons of their own, so to speak?
All right, well, I hope Baron's listening to this because it's very, are you listening, Baron? It's very important, Baron. But you know, a lot of people are sort of impressed, and I hope I can say this if we're sitting up here in 10 years here, but they like the way my children have come out. Ivanka has been fantastic. She's a wonderful person and very good at business, and Erica does everything. So they like the way, and they say, how did that happen? And I say, from the time they were little, I said, no drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. And I'll never forget, Ivanka was like 5 years old, and I'm telling she doesn't even know what drugs is, she doesn't know what I'm saying, no drugs. Every day I just drum it into her. Because I've seen over the years some really brilliant people having really brilliant kids. And they start with the alcohol, and they start with the drugs. And the cigarettes in terms of health, if you can avoid it, avoid it. But they start with the alcohol, they start with the drugs, and I must tell you, they're at a tremendous disadvantage. And so I always preach, no drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. And I'll tell my kids that every week, virtually once every week. I mean every. And, you know, I think I have children that don't have the drugs and don't have the alcohol and don't smoke. And it's an advantage. When you have a child that starts drinking or starts taking drugs, it's, you know better than anybody, this is such a competitive world. It's so tough without that, that if you start doing that, no good. I mean, I'll tell you one story. A banker, a big banker, is being honored at a tremendous hotel in New York City, and he had an alcohol problem. And I always respected him tremendously. And he was being honored, and he was drinking a lot that night. And he was, by the time he got his award, he was so drunk that we literally carried him off the stage in front of a large group, 2,000 people. We carried him off the stage. And I never felt the same about him. I've seen him many times, but I've never felt the same about him. So if you have children, if you can avoid it, sometimes it's too late. It's very hard to break. You know, it's not easy. I don't drink. I've never had a drink in my life. One of the good things about me. Only one, believe me. I have other problems. But you know what? I watch these people trying not to drink, and it's so hard for them. For me, it's very easy. If you never had a drink, it's like very easy. So if you can get your children not to do those things, they will have a big leg up on everybody else. So for whatever it's worth.
So I have I think a very relevant question. I've seen the more successful somebody is, the more naysayers they have, the more haters they have, right? All the way up to the very top. And you have a lot of people who love you. And you have a lot of people who don't like you, and that's really just a symptom of great success. A lot of people here in the audience, when they go and present the ACN business, they have haters or they have naysayers. How do you handle it? How do you handle the naysayers? How do you feel about it, and then what do you mentally do to handle it?
It's a great question. You haven't asked me that question, and to me, it's a fabulous question because I have a tremendous group of people that like me, but I have people that don't. And I don't want to use the word jealous with respect to me. I can tell you that if you take other successful people, they also have their enemies and their haters.
Yeah.
I call them the losers and the haters. I call them losers and haters because the words are interchangeable. A lot of it's jealousy, but it used to really bother me. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it would be absolutely bothersome to me and I would not like it. But over the years, I mean, it's like a badge of courage almost. If you're very successful, you're going to have people that are shooting at you because in most cases, they're not successful people. In fact, in most cases, they happen to be losers. I know a lot of people, they're shooting, and they really are losers, and they're losers certainly in their own mind. And you just have to view it as a badge of courage, in my opinion.
So I want to start to wind up our time here by having you encourage those that are here, maybe just new to ACN, maybe even just looking at ACN for the first time. One thing that I also admire about your brand is it's sort of a gold standard, right? You can have a normal building in a city, but as soon as you put the Trump name on the building, all of a sudden it increases in value because people know behind the Trump name is quality. I think the same thing about ACN, right? ACN has a certain gold standard. How do you think ACN's living up to that gold standard that you always require as part of the Trump brand?
Well, I think it's doing great, and so often I'll be outside and somebody will say, hey, I was at your speech at ACN, or I saw you at ACN, or I know you like ACN very much and you respect ACN and the founders, and they'll say, thank you, Mr. Trump, we went into ACN, we did well. And, you know, I'm not an owner of ACN, so I don't really need this, but I do like it. I do respect what the owners are doing. I also like one other thing about ACN. You can do other things and do this part-time. I know some people do very well part-time ACN. So it's additional income. It's additional work, but it's additional income. Then I know some people that have done so well that they make it full-time. But one of the important elements that we talked about is that 21-year thing. Because, again, when a company's in business for that long, it's not by mistake. And when I talk about the four founders, who I really have gotten to know pretty well over the years, and in a couple of cases very well, I really just have a lot of respect for this company. You mentioned words vision. You mentioned words of integrity, because the concept of integrity and vision. And so many people go into the wrong thing. I just happen to be a fan of the founders and of ACN.
So I want to ask one last question on that. To sum all this up, you mentioned you do endorse other companies. Obviously, you have lots of licensing deals with your brand, but you do not endorse any other direct selling or network marketing or multi-level marketing companies. ACN is the only company that you endorse in this category. And so I want to ask you, because maybe some people, again, are here just sort of looking at this, and they will heed the credibility that you have with your ideas and vision of why? Why, of all the companies out there, there are a lot of great companies in the direct selling industry, but ACN is extraordinary. Why did you choose them, and what do you say to somebody else? So
look, Darren, here's the deal. I'm pretty big in business. A lot of people say I'm very, very big in business. I enjoy helping people. And I say to the guys, I can't do this all the time. I have to miss a lot of them. But when I'm around, for instance, I come to Europe. Right after this, I go to Ireland, I go to Scotland, I go to projects that I'm doing. If I can do it, I do it. The reason I do it and the reason I believe in it is because, again, I believe in the people more than anything else. I believe in the four guys. I believe in Greg. I've watched them grow. You know, I started doing this when it was a much smaller company. And I've watched them grow, and I don't have complaints. You know, I've done other things where people will write in, oh, you said this and you said that about so-and-so, and I disagree. I just don't seem to get any complaints. People aren't complaining. And as you know, I speak in front of thousands of people. I think it's a wonderful company. I think it's a wonderful group of people. I think the founders are terrific guys. And even today, I shook more hands. You know, they said, oh, would you mind shaking a few hands? Well, the people that were there, my hand is like, forget it. But I love doing it. They're really attractive, smart, energetic people. I think they're going to do great. So I believe in ACN, but I believe in the founders. And I just wish everybody here a lot of luck. I've had a lot of fun. Hey, it's the first time I brought my wife and boy, and I believe in the company.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Michael.
This is a blessed company, and you are the blessed people, and you could have enjoyed the session what I have right now. I'm very much thankful to my whole team in Canada.